Hello everyone. Today we're going to continue on in the reading of the book of Genesis. This will be chapters 6 to 11. And in chapters 6 to 11, we're going to find the story of the Nephilim, a race of giants, and then the story of the flood. And it's interesting because, of course, the story of the flood is one that many people don't want to believe because there's no scientific basis, except for the fact that every culture has a flood story. The earth was covered with water at one point in time, and many scientists say, well, the idea of destroying all the animals on the earth would be impossible, except that we have had what is known as 5 extinction events so far in the history of the earth, where 95% or more of the animals were destroyed. All living creatures were destroyed. That's not to say that the flood story happened as exactly as it's listed in the Bible, but it's also not to say that there's no possibility of it. Along with the flood story, we have the story of the Tower of Babel, and in between we have a number of names to read, of course, and these are the generations from Noah all the way through to Abram. And then starting with chapter 12 next week will be the story of Abram and the beginning of the patriarchs. Today will be about 20 minutes to half an hour. So I'll begin with chapter 6. When human beings began to grow numerous on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw how beautiful the daughters of human beings were. So they took for their wives whomever they pleased. Then the Lord said, "My spirit shall not remain in human beings forever, because they are only flesh. Their days shall comprise 120 years." The Nephilim appeared on earth in those days as well as later, after the sons of God had intercourse with the daughters of human beings, who bore them sons. They were the heroes of old, the people of renown. When the Lord saw how great the wickedness of human beings was on earth, and how every desire that their heart conceived was always nothing but evil, the Lord regretted making human beings on the earth, and his heart was grieved. So the Lord said, "I will wipe out from the earth the human beings I have created, and not only the human beings, but also the animals, and the crawling things, and the birds of the air, for I regret that I made them." But Noah found favor with the Lord. These are the descendants of Noah. Noah was a righteous man and blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God. Noah begot 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. But the earth was corrupt in the view of God and full of lawlessness. When God saw how corrupt the earth had become, since all mortals had corrupted their ways on earth, God said to Noah, "I see that the end of all mortals has come, for the earth is full of lawlessness because of them. So I am going to destroy them with the earth. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Equip the ark with various compartments and cover it inside and out with pitch. This is how you shall build it. The length of the ark will be 300 cubits. Its width, 50 cubits. And its height, 30 cubits. Make an opening for daylight, and finish the ark a cubit above it. Put the ark's entrance on its side. You will make it with bottom, second, and third decks. I, on my part, am about to bring the flood waters on the earth, to destroy all creatures under the sky in which there is the breath of life. Everything on earth shall perish. I will establish my covenant with you. You shall go into the ark, you and your sons, your wife and your sons' wives with you. Of all living creatures, you shall bring 2 of every kind into the ark, 1 male and 1 female, to keep them alive along with you. Of every kind of bird, of every kind of animal, and of every kind of thing that crawls on the ground, 2 of each will come to you, that you may keep them alive. Moreover, you are to provide yourself with all the food that is to be eaten, and store it away, that it may serve as provisions for you and for them." Noah complied. He did just as God had commanded him. Then the Lord said to Noah, "Go into the ark, you and all your household, for you alone in this generation have I found to be righteous before me. Of every clean animal, take with you 7 pairs, a male and its mate. And of the unclean animals, 1 pair, a male and its mate. Likewise, every bird of the air, 7 pairs, a male and a female, to keep their progeny alive over all the earth. For 7 days from now I will bring rain down on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights, and so I will wipe out from the face of the earth every being that I have made. Noah complied, just as the Lord had commanded. Noah was 600 years old when the flood came upon the earth. Together with his sons, his wife, and his sons' wives, Noah went into the ark because of the waters of the flood. Of the clean animals and the clean and the unclean, of the birds and of everything that crawls on the ground, 2 by 2, male and female, came to Noah into the ark, just as God had commanded him. When the 7 days were over, the waters of the flood came upon the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, on that day, all the fountains of the great abyss burst forth, and the floodgates of the sky were opened. For 40 days and 40 nights heavy rain poured down upon the earth. On the very same day, Noah and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and Noah's wife, and the 3 wives of Noah's sons had entered the ark, together with every kind of wild animal, every kind of tame animal, every kind of crawling thing that crawls on the earth, and every kind of bird. Pairs of all creatures in which there was the breath of life came to Noah into the ark. Those that entered were male and female. Of all creatures they came as God had commanded Noah. Then the Lord shut him in. The flood continued upon the earth for 40 days. As the waters increased, they lifted the ark so that it arose above the earth. The waters swelled and increased greatly on the earth, but the ark floated on the surface of the waters. Higher and higher on the earth the waters swelled, until all the highest mountains under the heavens were submerged. The waters swelled 15 cubits higher than the submerged mountains. All creatures that moved on earth perished. Birds, tame animals, wild animals, and all that teemed on the earth, as well as all humankind, everything on dry land, with the breath of life in its nostrils, died. The Lord wiped out every being on earth, human beings and animals, the crawling things and the birds of the air. All were wiped out from the earth. Only Noah and those with him in the ark were left. And when the waters had swelled on the earth for 150 days, God remembered Noah and all the animals, wild and tame, that were with him in the ark. So God made a wind sweep over the earth, and the waters began to subside. The fountains of the abyss and the floodgates of the sky were closed, and the downpour from the sky was held back. Gradually, the waters receded from the earth. At the end of 150 days, the waters had so diminished that in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. The waters continued to diminish until the 10th month, and on the 1st day of the 10th month, the tops of the mountains appeared. At the end of 40 days, Noah opened the hatch of the ark that he had made, and he released a raven. It flew back and forth until the waters dried off from the earth. Then he released a dove to see if the waters had lessened on the earth. But the dove could find no place to perch, and it returned to him in the ark, for there was water over all the earth. Putting out his hand, Noah caught the dove and drew it back to him inside the ark. He waited yet 7 days more, and again released the dove from the ark. In the evening the dove came back to him, and there in its bill was plucked off an olive leaf. So Noah knew that the waters had diminished on the earth. He waited yet another 7 days, then released the dove. But this time it did not come back. In the 601st year, in the first month, on the first day of the month, the water began to dry up on the earth. Noah then removed the covering of the ark and saw that the surface of the ground had dried. In the second month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth was dry. Then God said to Noah, "Go out of the ark, together with your wife and your sons wives. Bring out with you every living thing that is with you, all creatures, be they birds or animals or crawling things that crawl on the earth, and let them abound on the earth, and be fertile and multiply on it." So Noah came out, together with his sons and his wife and his sons' wives, and all the animals, all the birds, and all the crawling creatures that crawl on the earth went out of the ark by families. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and choosing from every clean animal and every clean bird, he offered burnt offerings on the altar. When the Lord smelled the sweet odor, the Lord said to himself, "Never again will I curse the ground because of human beings, since the desire of the human hearts are evil from youth. Nor will I ever again strike down every living being as I have done. All the days of the earth, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, and day and night, shall not cease." God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, "Be fertile and multiply and fill the earth. Fear and dread of you shall come upon all the animals of the earth, and all the birds of the air, upon all the creatures that move about on the ground, and all the fishes of the sea. Into your power they are all delivered. Any living creature that moves about shall be yours to eat. I give them all to you as I did the green plants. Only meat with its lifeblood still in it you shall not eat. Indeed, for your own lifeblood I will demand an accounting. From every animal I will demand it, and from a human being, each one for the blood of another. I will demand an accounting for human life. Anyone who sheds the blood of a human being, by a human being shall that one's blood be shed. For in the image of God have human beings been made. Be fertile then, and multiply, abound on earth, and subdue it." God said to Noah, and to his sons with him, "See, I am now establishing my covenant with you and your descendants after you, and with every living creature that was with you, the birds, the tame animals, and all the wild animals that were with you, all that came out of the ark. I will establish my covenant with you, that never again shall all creatures be destroyed by the waters of a flood. There shall not be another flood to devastate the earth." God said, "This is the sign of the covenant that I am making between me and you and every living creature with you for all ages to come. I set my bow in the clouds to serve as a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. When I bring clouds over the earth and the bow appears in the clouds, I will remember my covenant between me and you and every living creature, every mortal being, so that the waters will never again become a flood to destroy every mortal being. When the bow appears in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature, every mortal being that is on earth." God told Noah, "This is the sign of the covenant I have established between me and every mortal being that is on earth." The sons of Noah who came out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. These three were the sons of Noah, and from them the whole earth was populated. Noah, a man of the soil, was the first to plant a vineyard. He drank some of the wine, became drunk, and lay naked beside his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father's nakedness, and he told his two brothers outside. Shem and Japheth, however, took a robe and holding it on their shoulders, they walked backward and covered their father's nakedness. Since their faces were turned the other way, they did not see their father's nakedness. When Noah woke up from his wine and learned what his youngest son had done to him, he said, "Cursed be Canaan, the lowest of slaves shall he be to his brothers." He also said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem. Let Canaan be his slave." May God expand Japheth, and may he dwell among the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his slave. Noah lived 350 years after the flood. The whole lifetime of Noah was 950 years. Then he died. These are the descendants of Noah's sons: Shem, Ham, and Japheth, to whom children were born after the flood. The descendants of Japheth: Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tiras. The descendants of Gomer: Ashkenaz, Divath, and Tobamar. The descendants of Javan: Elisha, Tarshish, the Kittim, and the Rodanim. From these branched out the Maritime nations. These are the descendants of Japheth by their lands, each with its own language, according to their clans by their nations. The descendants of Ham: Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. The descendants of Cush: Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Ramah, and Sabteka. The descendants of Ramah: Sheba and Dedan. Cush became the father of Nimrod, who was the first to become a mighty warrior on the earth. He was a mighty hunter in the eyes of the Lord, hence the saying, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter in the eyes of the Lord. His kingdom originated in Babylon. Erech and Akkad, all of them in the land of Shinar. From that land he went forth to Assyria, where he built Nineveh, Rehoboth-ir, and Calah, as well as Resen, between Nineveh and Calah, the latter being the principal city. Mizraim became the father of Ludim, the Anamim, the Lehabim, the Naphtuhim, the Pathrusim, and the Kasuhim, and the Kaphtorim, from whom the Philistines came. Canaan became the father of Sidon, his firstborn, and of Heth, also of the Jebusites, the Amorites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, the Archites, the Sinites, the Arvadites, the Zemarites, and the Hamathites. Afterward, the clans of the Canaanites spread out, so that the Canaanite borders extended from Sidon all the way to Gerar near Gaza, and all the way to Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim near Lasha. Here are the descendants of Ham according to their clans, according to their languages, by their lands, by their nations. To Shem also, Japheth's oldest brother and the ancestor of all the children of Eber, children were born, the descendants of Shem: Elam, Asher, Arpachshad, Lud, and Aram. The descendants of Aram: Uz, Hul, Gether, and Mash. Arpachshad became the father of Shelah, and Shelah became the father of Eber. To Eber 2 sons were born. The name of the first was Peleg, for in his time the world was divided, and the name of his brother was Joktan. Joktan became the father of Almodad, Sheleph, Hazarmapheth, Jerah, Hadoram, Uzal, Dikla, Obal, Abimael, Sheba, Ophir, Havilah, and Jobab. All these were descendants of Joktan. Their settlements extended all the way from Mesha to Sephar, the eastern hill country. These are the descendants of Shem, according to their clans, according to their languages, by their lands, by their nations. These are the clans of Noah's sons, according to their origins and by their nations. From these the nations of the earth branched out after the flood. The whole world had the same language and the same words. When they were migrating from the east, they came to a valley in the land of Shinar and settled there. They said to one another, "Come, let us mold bricks and harden them with fire." They used bricks for stone and bitumen for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and so make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we shall be scattered all over the earth." The Lord came down to see the city and the tower that the people had built. Then the Lord said, "If now, while they are one people, and all have the same language, they have started to do this. Nothing they presume to do will be out of their reach. Come, let us go down there and confuse their language, so that no one will understand the speech of another. So the Lord scattered them from there over all the earth, and they stopped building the city. That is why it is called Babel, because there the Lord confused the speech of all the world. From there the Lord scattered them over all the earth. These are the descendants of Shem. When Shem was 100 years old, he begot Arpachshad 2 years after the flood. Shem lived 500 years after he begot Arpachshad, and he had other sons and daughters. When Arpachshad was 35 years old, he begot Shelah. Arpachshad lived 403 years after he begot Shelah, and he had other sons and daughters. When Shelah was 30 years old, he begot Eber. Shelah lived 403 years after he begot Eber, and he had other sons and daughters. When Eber was 34 years old, he begot Peleg. Eber lived 430 years after he begot Peleg, and he had other sons and daughters. When Peleg was 30 years old, he begot Reu. Peleg lived 209 years after he begot Reu, and he had other sons and daughters. When Reu was 32 years old, he begot Serug. Reu lived 207 years after he begot Serug, and he had other sons and daughters. When Serug was 30 years old, he begot Nahor. Serug lived 200 years after he begot Nahor, and he had other sons and daughters. When Nahor was 29 years old, he begot Terah. Nahor lived 119 years after he begot Terah, and he had other sons and daughters. When Terah was 70 years old, he begot Abram, Nahor, and Haran. These are the descendants of Terah. Terah begot Abram, Nahor, and Haran begot Lot. Haran died before Terah his father in his native land in Ur of the Chaldeans. Abram and Nahor took wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah, daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah and Iscah. Sarai was barren. She had no child. Terah took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, the wife of his son Abram, and brought them out of Ur of the Chaldeans to go to the land of Canaan. But when they reached Haran, they settled there. The lifetime of Terah was 205 years. Then Terah died in Haran. That's the end of chapter 11. And as we get to chapter 12 next time, we're going to meet Abram, one of Terah's sons, and start learning about the covenant that God made with Abram to choose a people to himself. Thank you very much.